Hey guys, this is Steve on the Guru Brew. This is part 2 of the computer build. If you missed part 1, you can take a look right here. And we went over the parts and explained exactly what we were going to do. Well, today we're going to take all those parts and we're going to put them in the case and we're going to see if we can get this computer to start up. So if you're ready to build a computer, let's get started. First thing I like to do is get the motherboard ready before I put it in the case. Put some certain parts on the motherboard, such as the processor. That's a good place to start. Now, the processor has different marks on it. Notice on this Pentium 4 processor that there's a niche here and here. And that's actually a key to let you know how it fits in here. And it only goes one way. And if you look, there's two tabs. There's one here and one there. So this just fits just like that. Never force this. If it doesn't go right in, then just try it again. Don't force it at all. And then the door just closes, and this little handle goes down and snaps to the side, just like that. Next up is the heat sink, and this is the heat sink, and there's 4 holes here. And the holes have a bracket on the bottom. These bolts go through the circuit board and then mount to here. So what happens is when this chip gets hot, it transfers the heat onto this, and then there's a fan that sits on top of here that cools the whole thing. Instead of just putting this on and bolting it up, you should use some of this stuff. It's a silicone compound, and it's made to mount chips onto heat sinks. The stuff I have here was purchased at Radio Shack, but you can pick it up at Allied Electronics or just about any electronics store. You don't need a whole lot because it's just going to fill in the gaps and make a nice thermal bond in between the heat sink and this chip. That's about all you need there. Phillips screwdriver. Just go around and get them started before you tighten anything. And do not use a power screwdriver for this. You might break something. Okay, all of them are loosely tight now, so I'm going to go through one more time and just give each one of them a final tiny little snugging. Not too tight. This one wasn't quite tight, was it? There we go. Okay, and this is what it looks like on the back. You can see that my bolts are coming up through the bottom. Okay, we're going to put the fan on next. I want to show you something on the fan. I hope that you will be able to see this. There's 2 arrows on this fan. Just make sure that the one arrow is pointed in the direction of the heatsink. Okay, so here's that arrow. I want to make sure that the air is going down and through the fan into the heatsink like that. Also, you want to make sure that the wires are going off the right side. And this is the plug that the fan will go into. There's actually 2 different plugs on this motherboard. There's one here and there's one here. This one's marked CPU, so you want to make sure that you plug that into the correct one. And it has a key on it, so you can't screw it up. Just snaps on just like that. Now that we've got our fan and heat sink and processor on the motherboard, we're going to go ahead and start putting this in the case. So here's the motherboard and here's the case. Now while I still have the motherboard out of the case, I want to go ahead and hook my power and my lights up to the motherboard, and they go right here. I'll show you what that controls. That's the switch on the front, as well as the power indicator and the hard drive indicator here. And this is also keyed. There's a missing pin. That pushes on just like that. Okay. So the rest of these parts we'll go ahead and put on once we get it into the case. What I'm doing is I'm lining up the back. And I'm also looking for my bolt holes. Okay. Everything should line up nice. Make sure there's nothing underneath this motherboard. And then start popping screws in. There's quite a few of them. A magnetic screwdriver at this point would help you a lot. Now I realize it might be kind of hard to see exactly what I'm doing because the camera and my hands and my head ain't going to fit in this case all at the same time. But once you get the real thing in front of you, it'll make complete sense. Just look down, find the bolt holes, line them up. And it might be tempting to leave a couple screws out, but it really is a good deal, or it really is a good idea to use all the screws. That way it will prevent flexing of the board when you're moving the case around. Just a quick look and make sure I have them all in. Okay, I do believe I have them. Alright, so I'll just show you these screws real quick. Here's one here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 8 screws in this one. These are the external USB. There's firewire and there's headphone jacks and miscellaneous things on the front of this case. Your case might vary, but that's next in line because I have to take all these wires and make sure they go to the motherboard. Okay, I'm ready to put on some external USB devices. They're just panels with the plugs on them. And I need to put those in now so I can hook them to the motherboard. It just pops in like that. And here's another one. It has all the audio plus some USB and a 1394 in the front. Okay, I have those on the front. Now I have to plug them onto the motherboard. Okay, this is a bad example of an onboard USB cable. You'll notice that there's one pin missing, and that's to help you key this. When you see cables like this, they're generally USB. Here's the corresponding USB pins on the motherboard, and you'll also notice that there's a pin missing off them too, so you know which way to turn the cable. So with the pin missing on the upper left there, I will just like that. Another USB. So there's 3 USB externals. This fan also has the direction arrows, and these are important. That way you know if you're pushing or pulling air. In this case, I would like to remove heat from the case, so the arrow is going to go to the outside. And be mindful of where this fan plugs into a 12-volt source. And if you look right down here, you can actually see where it plugs on. So I'll go ahead and plug it on first, and it is keyed. And then these screws hold it in. There we go. I wanted to quickly explain about the cable select. Someone asked me to clarify it in the last video, so I'm going to attempt to do that now. If you look on these IDE ribbon cables, you'll notice where it says slave, and you'll notice where it says master. And even though the cable might not be marked, such as this one, it's exactly the same kind of cable. It's just not marked, and they don't always mark the on there. But the master is always the end one, and the slave is always in the middle. And the idea behind the cable select is if you put the master on the end and the slave in the middle, the motherboard will be able to detect the position of the connector, and then all you have to simply do is move this to cable select and not worry about it. Otherwise you have to put you know, master or slave. So that's the idea behind the cable select. It's that simple, really. So if I had two drives on this, I could just plug it into the motherboard. I could put both of my drives on cable select, and this would determine that this would be the master and this would be the slave. I'm going to take this jumper and I'm going to put it on CS, which is the first one here, cable select. Just like that. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and check my CD player too. And according to the case, the cable select is the far left one, which it is. So this is okay. Okay, time to put the hard drive in. And each case will vary, but this one just slides in. Makes a little clicking noise. Now, because I have two channels, actually I have three, but one's for a floppy. If you look down here and you see these three connectors here, these are all IDE connectors. The smaller of the three is for a floppy drive, which we're not using, and then the other two are for channel A and channel B of IDE. Close attention might have to be paid to the board here, but there's markings on it that says IDE 1 and IED 2, and 1 would be the first drive, which is generally your hard drive, and then 2 would be the CD, although it really doesn't matter what way you have them, because you can change it in BIOS. If you look at the IDE cable, the motherboard part, you'll notice that there's a missing pin, and there's also a missing pin down here. And you just line it up so the missing pins are together. And I'll move my big hand here in a minute. And I'll go ahead and put another one on too. And you can tell these red stripes. So once I have the one on, these red stripes always go towards the bottom. There's the other one. Because we only have two drives and we have two IDE plugs, we're just going to give one device to each wire, and we'll just hook them both up onto master, the end. So this will go just like that. Okay, let's slide our CD in there. That also slides in from the front. Make sure you get the logo up there. It just snaps in. This is our spare cable, just like the hard drive. Okay, next up, we're going to put the power supply in. Okay, I'm ready to put the power supply in now. The wires go towards the bottom of the case instead of like this. it goes like this, and also these vents go to the inside of the case rather than the top of the case. So these vents go this way. Just like that. And there's 4 screws. Good. Okay, we're going to take this mess and plug it in. The first thing I like to do is find the 2 wires for the motherboard. And that's this biggest one here. And if you can see this right down here, this is the connector that it fits onto. There's a little clasp that's right here, and this clips on to this piece of plastic on this side. Once you get down in here, you'll notice that one side has like a little clip. I apologize if you can't see this. It's a little tough to see. And this is what I was speaking about in the other video with the 2 open pins on the end there. There's actually 4 open pins. That's perfectly acceptable. Okay. And there is one more connector that goes to the motherboard, and it's this one. I call it a P4 connector. It has 4 pins on it. Some motherboards actually have 2 of these. This one just has 1. Okay, so here's my connector for this. So I want to snake it over there without going through a bunch of, try to make the path as clean as possible. So I'm going to go this way. And make sure too that, you know, your wires aren't going into any of the fans. So there's our P4 connector, and here's the other motherboard connector. Next up, let's get some power to these, the hard drive and the CD-ROM. Now this doesn't really matter which one you use, but I will give you a recommendation. If you notice, there's 2 power connectors, 4-pin power connectors on this one wire. And there's also 2 on this wire. Actually, there's 3, but this is a floppy drive, and there's 2 power connectors. I would recommend, if you have the extra wire, go ahead and plug this into here and then this into here, rather than trying to share a wire. And the reason why is because, you know, you'll have thicker wire going to individual points. So, on IDE, the red always goes towards the ribbon cable. Here's your power. Just like that. And same with this one. I just kind of whip it up, get it on there. So that's it for the wiring on this one. You know, the more stuff you have in your computer, the more plugs you're going to have to plug in, but it's exactly the same as what we're doing here. And also, if you have a high performance video card, a GPU, you might also have a power cable on it, so you want to check that too. And like I said, you might want to get some zip ties or something like that and route these cables a little bit neater and make sure that they stay out of the fans. Okay, let's get our memory in. Okay, so I'm just now putting my memory in. I'm just going to put a single stick in for now. And I think I've said this on another video, but when I use just one stick of RAM, I always like to put that stick in as closest to the processor as I possibly can. In other words, the processor's here. I like to put it in this slot rather than this far slot over here. So I just line that up, slide it in. Make sure you're going the right way. Just line it up. And then press in evenly to these two snap up. Okay, rams in. I'm ready to put this cover on. Line everything up there. Okay, I think we're ready to button this up. I have all the parts in there. You just want to give it a once over and make sure that, you know, you didn't leave any screwdrivers inside there or loose screws, anything like that. Make sure that all your wires are away from the fans so they can't get tangled up in the fans. And it's time to put the case on, or the cover, I'm sorry. Did you know that these type of screws here are called knurl knobs? Yep, knurl knobs. Turn my knurl knob. I used to work at this place, and that's what they call them. I don't know if it's true, but they call them knurl knobs. Alright, there it is. There's an HP. Let's plug it in and see if it works. Dare me? Okay, so here we are. We're going to check this out. Now this hard drive that's in here does have an operating system on there, so I'm not going to be doing an operating system install today, but I'm sure we have a video for that, and if not, I'll make one. Okay, moment of truth, here we go. I hear noises. Oh. Looks good on the screen too. Okay, so looks like BIOS is firing up and all is well. Yep, good old XP on there. Okay guys, so that does it for building a simple computer. All these steps are fairly simple to follow. It's just a little common sense and a little know-how. And if you get hung up on a certain part, you can always Google it. So that's not a tough part at all. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, tell all your nerdy friends about us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, this is Steve. Thanks for watching. Hey, don't forget to subscribe if you like this video, and be sure to rate and comment. See ya.